Alrighty, we should be live, hopefully. Hey there, everyone. This is Doc. For those of you who followed along with the debate, hope you had fun. Uh, we we should have fun here. Hopefully, I'm gonna go ahead and put the link to the StreamYards in the chat. Let's see. Can I? Oh, come on. YouTube's being stupid. There we go. Pin message. Yahoo. Let me. Uh. Hello. Hello, Beamsy.
I think I rather upset Bubble Dum Dum.
Yeah, sorry you couldn't get your critique of Sam out there.
I'll show you exactly what it was if you want.
I'm gonna go get a quick snack, so you two have fun.
A snack? I want a snack.
Dude, it's midnight. I've been sitting in my chair for 5 hours. I need food.
I actually ate while you were on hour 4 mark. I was like, this is gonna end any minute now. I should grab a bite now, and then I'll be ready for when the after show's. And an hour later, I'm like, okay, I guess I didn't have to rush.
The sad thing is, the thing that Redefined Living was putting forwards, look at all these genetic conditions. There's thousands of them. Okay, read them. The first 8, 7 of them are redirecting to a completely different condition, and then the 8th one is the only one that actually is the condition. And it's like that all the way through. And it's got things like alopecia in there. Are you saying that Will Smith's wife is going to die?
Maybe. I don't think so, though. Like some of the things, I don't know. I was multitasking during most of the show. Hey, Dr. Dino just hit 130. This has been a great day for Doc. I mean, aside from having to deal with Kent, but yeah, it's shoot, I can't even remember how many subs it was this morning when I looked, because I knew it was going to go up today because there's so much going on, but I remember it was definitely below 120 during the captive desk interview, so it's gone up, over 10, past 120, past 125. Now it's at 130. So yeah, awesome.
It's not necessarily a beneficial or a detrimental. That would be very situational, because in situations in which you don't actually have any lactose in your diet, it doesn't matter. But that link I put in there is the one that Sam was using to, look at all these genetic conditions and just look at the first 8. Count how many of them are just redirections.
I have to open another link, don't I?
That's why I've got 5 screens. Well,
I know I need more monitors.
It's got alpha protein nephropathy, C. Tangular disease, AT, C. Altexia teiglacia, AA, C. Aliphoria erythea, AAA, C-AAA syndrome, AAA syndrome, C-AAA syndrome, AADC deficiency, C. anaerobic. Yeah, it's see this syndrome, see this syndrome, see this condition. That's the first 7, and then it finally goes to an 8th one, which goes, this is an actual condition. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 more before the next condition.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm looking at this chart, and there's...
All right.
This is way outside my field.
They're basically listing off genetic conditions, just the names of them, but you can see the majority of them are basically just saying, this condition is actually called this condition. This condition is actually called this condition. This condition is actually called this condition. So yes, list thousands of them, but there's would be about 120, maybe 150 on there.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
So
I decided a Caesar salad sounded good. I think something got brought up about Kent using a word salad, and that made me hungry for salad.
yeah,
Yeah, that kind of thing happens to me a lot too. Okay, Ivan, I just noticed your thing in the chat. I'm still clicking so many freaking windows. Mutations. Would the ability to process lactose after infancy be considered a beneficial mutation? I would think so. I mean, technically, it's a deleterious mutation because the way the lactase works is the gene is supposed to turn off our production of lactase somewhere around about age 5, give or take, if I remember correctly. But if that gene is damaged, then we just keep on making it. So that is a deleterious mutation that has a beneficial effect.
but it's not deleterious because it's not having any negative effect on anything. It's a neutral condition.
So what you're saying is mutations are context dependent?
No, that never
How
happens.
weird.
By deleterious, I mean it in the way the young Earth creationists mean it, which is that an existing gene is broken. There's
Ah,
damage to the actual sequence.
Yes, but that's not
that's
deleterious. It's just a damaged gene, which changes its use.
really quick to the chat. This is an open mic. If you'd like, feel free to click that link in the comments where y'all talk. We welcome creationists, evolutionists, whoever. I'm just going to be slowly growing more intoxicated. You have been warned.
Always a good
I
plan.
need Irish
I saw
cream.
people popping in and out. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what's up with that.
Hello, Sunflower.
Oh, what's up? Sorry, I didn't realize I was
Not
on.
much. You were an enigma. Like, you were railing against me hard, but then at the end, did you call Donnie out on being dishonest, or did I mishear
Well,
something?
look, I'm trying to be better at being neutral, and I think there are problems with the creationist picture, and I think there's problems with the sort of strictly evolutionist picture. Now, I'm not going to say that they're like. I think that a lot of times, people that are really anti-creationist and pro-evolutionist, I think they will have a sort of suspension of disbelief for the potential flaws in a complete evolutionary argument. But I think there's flaws in both. So
Huh.
I'm trying to do a better job of being objective, although I'm not quite there yet, but I am trying to do a better
Oh,
job.
don't sweat it, man. I mean,
Yeah.
even those of us who like deliberately try to be centrist, and that is not me by any metric on this particular topic, but people who try, they still don't always manage it because we're all humans. And by the by, that first super chat that you sent, I forget what the hell it was, but it was a really cool question, and I wanted to say that I liked that I saw it, but then I saw Doc was simulcasting, so I switched over to Doc Stream.
Yeah, I asked about uranium getting sucked into the zircon before crystallization and when you start the timer. And look,
Oh, sure.
I genuinely am trying to learn. And Dr. Dino gave at least a good response to that.
But would you like me to pull up my PowerPoint? I was hoping Kent would want to talk about it more, so I
I
didn't
mean,
go too.
what you said made enough sense to me that I like I at the very least accept that you know what you're talking about and you have a consistent worldview, which is actually
Thank you.
that's something I can't say for a lot of people on either side.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, when asked certain questions, will often panic. And this isn't my soapbox, but I'm just gonna say, I've changed my position on issues so often that I'm very, very, very more inclined to uh have confidence in a person if they can uh answer questions honestly and admit when there are shortcomings. And I
Fair
think you
enough.
did actually a good job of that. Dino, I don't think you tried to be. There was never a point where I felt you were trying to be condescending and act like the opposition's question was so stupid or so silly that it betrayed even answering, I think you did a good job, and I really respect that, because I don't see that on either side at this point anymore. So
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I do think I broke down a bit with Bubbles, but
well, that's
Bubbles is
inevitable.
infuriating.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think Bubbles deserved every second and more.
If you could have seen the private chat, he was breaking down at me because I was actually going through evidence of where the Dalmatian comes from and showing historical evidence as well as genetic evidence, and then using his arguments to say that, oh, so if they've got this picture, does that mean all these dogs are also Dalmatians because they've got spots? And he was getting more and more upset with me.
Oh, God. Well, just Sunflower. What were you saying? What you were saying earlier about questioning things? I feel like that's actually a pretty good position to have. Like, even if you trust a source, look into what they're saying and why they're saying it. That is a good attitude. And I wish more people thought like that.
Right. And well, you know, it's hard for me specifically because I don't want to, again, don't want to make this my soapbox, but I, growing up, was the kind of person that would honestly laugh at and be condescending to anyone who ever invoked a religious explanation of anything. When people said they were conservative or, you know, like I would basically laugh at them and say like, this is like bullshit. I was so entrenched in a far left, like atheistic paradigm that I maybe, and there's some projection in that now as I'm more mature, but because I saw it in myself and my peers and how like growing up in this far left, very progressive blue area, and how we would all just kind of like it was almost just kind of unspoken and understood that you would try to kind of laugh at and undermine and be condescending towards people that would invoke God and religion.
I mean, hey, good on you for trying to have a more open mind. Funny enough, my life story is basically the opposite. I come from just nowhere, Iowa, where everyone is red as hell.
Nowhere, Iowa. So
it started to bug me.
You got Slipknot and Ashton Kutcher as your one and your two claims of fame, right? Am I right about
Slipknot's good. I'm not 100% sure about Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, no.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Korn? Korn's fun.
Yeah, I think Slipknot's a lot better than Korn. But not to soak up too much time here, but I guess I'm a person who realizes I think the pendulum swung too far to the left in the sense that it swung too far into the anti-religious skepticism and the whole haha, you believe in God, you're an idiot, like this is stupid. Like, so I try to be fair, but I'm trying to also be self-aware of the fact that I come from a upbringing of laughing at, mocking, and being condescending towards anyone that believes in God or believes in pro-life, or, you know, this, like, I very much am from the ilk of like, oh, we're the smart people, we're the enlightened liberals.
Sure.
You know, so it's like,
so I understand what you're saying, Sunflower, but having been in multiple places in my life, like a lot of groups that are just very insular, they're all like that. You can hear it all the time whenever Kent has a debate. His followers are always laughing in the background, thinking they have the correct story.
100%.
That always happens, and it sucks when it does happen.
Yeah. Well, but I guess I'm at a crossroads because as I've grappled with this kind of far left, liberal ideology, I've felt a complete vacuum in terms of any kind of meaning or purpose for life at all. It seems like the more I sort of as I became more entrenched into this leftist ideology of believing God is stupid and it's oppressive, I eventually ended up in a complete void of meaning and purpose. And I sort of saw my peers, and it's like, well, everyone else is kind of getting a kick out of this because they're just enjoying kind of dunking on the theists that they kind of view as like, less sophisticated and like whatever. But at the end of the day, this is a void. Like, this is a scary, terrifying void in which it's nihilistic. It is really not a place I want to exist in. And so then I guess after bouncing that far to the left, I was like, I do not like that. Not only do I not like that, it doesn't even align with my soul. And I realized that what doesn't align with my soul is that there's some kind of concept of God.
Sure.
I originally didn't believe in Jesus. I identified as a agnostic theist, but it was like it took me to bounce all the way to the left and to laugh at and make fun of people that believed in God and belittle them, and like think of them as like less sophisticated and stupid, like Southern, like hicks that like just inherited like tradition, and then it got so bad that it was like, this is hell. It literally felt like hell. And then I kind of like realigned, like, well, do I even believe that there's no God? And then I kind of like came back. But
I get what you're saying, and like, to be honest, I am glad you're on this journey of self-discovery. That's a good thing. But if I can give one piece of advice, don't get so caught up in rejecting what you once were that you reject everything that you used to be. Because every side does have some valid points, at least when it comes to like left and right and whatever. There
I
are some
agree with
valid
that.
points everywhere.
Yeah, I
So
agree
just
with that.
don't reject something just because you used to believe it. Examine what your beliefs are, what your values are, and use it to make yourself a better person.
And that's why I said that, like, I realized that I did always believe in some kind of God, although it was an agnostic theism, right? So it wasn't that I would like so that was always a central belief of mine, but I still am largely left leaning, right? So I can understand, or at least I'm willing to make the concession that I might disagree with like some liberal concepts, but I don't think they should be illegal. So, for example, I think on a legal basis, I am pro-choice. I am pro-LGBTQ rights. I am, pro people should be allowed to, of course, be atheist or believe whatever they want to believe in. So, like, in terms of legality, I'm actually liberal, but then it came back to like, well, what do I personally believe?
Sure.
And aside, politics aside, I actually do realize that I personally have always had some kind of belief in a God, whether it was the Christian God or otherwise. So yeah, so I do agree with you in that. It took me a while to reconcile my political, because I think there's a lot to be said about political beliefs and personal beliefs. As in, I can believe whatever, I can feel however I want about abortion or gay marriage personally. That does not mean that I want it to be outlawed, right? So at the end of the day, I'm saying, it doesn't even matter what I think about it personally. It should be legal, and these people should have equal rights, and the woman should have the right to have the abortion. And that was a very big like sort of moment for me. It was like realizing that I can believe that other people have the right to do things legally, that my private thoughts doesn't matter. I can still and I'm not saying I don't support.
Maybe as a bookend to this, like, just really quick, like, you can be religious and still follow the science. Beamsy here does it. I've done it in the past.
Oh yeah, no.
I brought up Mary Schweitzer in my presentation.
I largely
yeah.
do have that issue. I consider myself a compatibilism, right? I ascribe to a largely compatibilist idea that I'm progressive in senses that I don't reject science.
Mhm.
I do believe in God. But with that said, I do think the left goes too far too sometimes. But I try to be very self-aware of, wait a second, is this me personally not liking something? Or is this me actually thinking it should be illegal because it's harmful?
Yeah,
And
I
so
mean, fair
I'm
enough. And
right.
just
And
a
so
quick
it's not
question: like,
liberal.
are you interested in seeing like more of the evidence we have for like human evolution or stuff like that?
Well, I don't even really reject human evolution, but what I
Oh,
do
okay.
think is that people that ascribe to it are usually, more often than not, unwilling to even accept inconsistencies in the sort of
Hmm.
grand scheme, right? So like even the concept of like non-universal ancestry, right? Like what if there was just two original
Sure.
things? I mean, but yeah, but you say sure, but like you can't. Most people would consider that like, oh, no way, like no. What do you
Well,
mean two? Like,
well, it gets a bit complicated if you know much about cellular biology. Like
yeah, but it's not
supposedly a lot
about
of unicellular organisms can just like swap DNA when they contact each other.
you could just consider like two primordial organisms that existed
Mhm.
early on and converged at an early state. That's
Yeah.
not that crazy. Like, it's not really that. But again, like people, I think, are so hot off the hip to reject creationism that they don't that they you know they get caught up in this. Well, you don't have proof, you don't have proof. We have no idea what the freaking origin of life looked like frankly.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that it's, oh, there's no models of how it could exist, of how abiogenesis could have happened naturally. I'm not gonna say that, but I am gonna say we have no idea if it was one single organism versus like maybe two that happened nearby and converged. Like, come on.
Sure.
Like this is it,
I mean,
the idea that we have any level of confidence in things like this at a certain point. I do detect some level of like of some sort of like denial in the universal common ancestry, purely natural evolutionist side, where it's like, look, dude, like
um,
it could have just been two organisms that converged, but
I
Sunflower.
agree with you, but like for
they
now,
really struggle. They
sorry,
struggle
just the
to concede such a
listen.
thing.
I like the conversation, but this is an after show for my debate with Kent.
My
Does anyone
apologies.
else
Go
have
ahead.
any thoughts on it?
Yeah.
Don't
Everyone
apologize.
else.
It's fine. It's good you're finding out
You,
who you are, but just maybe we can have
Yeah.
another stream to talk about this.
By all means, my apologies. Sorry about
Especially
that.
since I'm slowly becoming more intoxicated, so I
That's my
might not be
bad.
the best person to give life advice.
and Sunflower, when it comes down to any biologist that's worth their salt, accepts that abiogenesis is recognized as the potential, but it could have been seeded by aliens. A god could have come down and actually created the first organism before it was life. There are many different options that could actually have arisen from, but
That's not
only
what I
honest
said. I
people.
said it could be abiogenesis. It could be two. No, wait a second. So you straw man. That's not what I said. I said that it could have been natural, but it could have been just, instead of universal common ancestry, as in like one organism that then sprung everything. I was saying, like, what if it was just two that existed nearby and converged early on?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It also, like I
Oh,
said, it
you
could have
invoked
been.
aliens. I didn't invoke alien. I'm saying it could have been natural, but it could have just been two initial ancestry roots instead of one.
Sure,
That's
and
There
all.
are,
if I may, like Beamsy, you in your beliefs, like you think that life was sparked by a supernatural cause, correct? So you
yes,
have an alternative opinion on this.
yeah. My opinion of it is different again. It all starts at what is referred to by scientists as the Big Bang. It starts from before that. But that it exists outside of reality, so it has no bearing on reality.
Okay. Again, my
Reality.
point was
Cool.
not to say that it couldn't have been natural. It was aliens. It was saying that I was going after the universal common ancestry and saying that as far as I understand all good theories about abiogenesis, I have no reason to believe it couldn't have happened at least twice, 3 times or more at different points, and then they could have sort of converged. So why are we doubling down on universal common? It could have been a early primordial tree, in which there was 2 or 3 initial primordial life forms that eventually converge. But again, I don't see evolution, atheist evolution as open-minded at all. It almost seems like they want to only go by what the consensus is and shut down any open-minded suggestion
So,
of anything else.
sorry,
That to me is
Sunflower.
it's heartbreaking.
Sunflower,
Okay,
as
go ahead.
someone who is in those sciences, not necessarily original life, but
I am too, by the way.
we welcome dissent because it can breed innovation. I said, Mark, it looks like you've been trying to say something for the last few
But
minutes.
wait,
Got something to
I'm
say
in
about
those sciences too. What's your field?
paleontology?
I have a biochemistry degree. How about you?
Oh, fun. Bachelor's, geo major, bio minor.
Okay. So just
And
I would say
it
just
might
before you
be
say
my
things like
experience
as
that
someone that's in that field,
most of the scientists I know, like,
be aware of the person you're talking to. They might have a little bit more experience than you. Just saying.
yeah, fair.
Well, I think the thing is that science, I mean, it excludes supernatural origins because it's fine to say, hey, we want to let in supernatural origins for, say, like Beamsy was talking about, like sort of a spark of creation, but then you'd have to let in all supernatural origins that anybody has. And then you get into massive problems with how do you distinguish between which is a plausible explanation and which isn't. As for your sort of multiple originating organisms, I think they're just sort of because abiogenesis isn't a theory; it's just a hypothesis or a series of hypotheses that sort of model what could have happened. I think they're going for the more probabilistic cause. So I think that the probability that 2 organisms would produce through abiogenesis and then be compatible to continue evolution of life, I think that's a lot less likely. That's not to say we can't, we definitely can't exclude it. You've got a point there, Sunflower. We can't exclude it, but I think sort of as an Occam's razor, you would say we'll probably, you would lean towards the simpler explanation, which is 1 than 2.
I'm not sure it's simpler though, because if the conditions existed in a sort of like whatever the case may be, right? Let's say there's clay and there's lightning and there's salt water. I imagine this existed in more place than just one on the earth, and I actually think if abiogenesis happened once, I would say it's actually probably more likely it happened more than once.
Oh, most certainly. The main issue is we just don't have much data for the environment when it was that old.
Well,
that's why abiogenesis is a hypothesis, not necessarily a theory. At least not yet.
But when you just said certainly, you are actually going against what Mark said. Mark said it's more parsimonious that it happened one time. But then when I just said, well, if the conditions existed in a way that would lend themselves to this reaction of some sort of very, very basic, lightning, amino acid, clay, salt water, whatever it may be, like the most primordial kind of RNA thing. What you just said, well, certainly it could have happened more than once. But wait, Mark was saying it probably only happened once. Well, what is the
sunflower? What I mean is we don't know what exactly happened. Mark is correct, though, saying that it's more parsimonious that there was a single common ancestor.
Well, I disagree.
It could happen more than once. We don't know.
But if the conditions existed for it to happen even once, I'd say it's more likely it happened more than once.
I would say it's possible, but we don't have data to be sure.
I mean, you could chalk it up to being a miraculous event, but I would say if the conditions existed sufficiently for it to happen once, it probably happened more than once.
Okay, fair.
Doubt it just happened one time
Sorry.
ever. That's what I would
Sorry,
say.
I agree with you, Sunflower. I do agree. It's likely it could have happened more than once.
Thank you.
Regardless of how many times it happened, though, we're here. It did happen in some way.
Something happened, sure. I just also want to say, Doc, that was a great debate. I really enjoyed it. Really, really well done. And you put the work in, and it certainly did show. That presentation was fantastic. You seem to like finish exactly on time, which I was impressed by. That's always a good sign. Really, really good. I was impressed. So yeah, kudos. Well done.
Thank you. If anyone has any critiques or anything, I gotta go refill my drink.
I think you
I've
did
already
good.
given mine, so
I think you did good too, for what it's worth.
did well. Superman does good. No, I'm joking. It's fine. Everyone knows what you mean. Just being a grammar Nazi.
Come on,
Oh,
I'm an
yeah.
American. I'm an
Yeah,
American, dude. We don't speak proper English. We speak
Hey.
no.
I'm Australian. You're lucky I'm not swearing right now. You really took Hovind apart. Yeah, thanks, Big Bad Mama. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't even get to say one word to the guy. Wow.
I will say I've seen Hovind in a lot of debates, and I feel like he's usually well equipped at least diverting or whatever. I think Dr. Dino in this debate held his feet to the fire way more than I've usually seen. It did like it almost seemed, even if you are on Hovind's side in this debate, it's almost undeniable at times that Hovind kind of panicked and pivoted to topics he felt more comfortable with. I think that Dr. Dino also did a good job at showing restraint and not getting frustrated and maybe like insulting or whatever. I think Dr. Dino did a really good job. I really do. I think.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Doc
I think
is surprisingly good at being. What's the word? Temperate. Good tempered,
Cordial?
something like that.
Not getting completely pissed off and falling for his. Honestly, his kindergarten level insults. Like my 5-year-old sister could come up with better insults than Kent can.
I think
And she'd be more coherent.
AJ was well out of line. I think that was absolutely horrible.
Sorry, which bit?
He sort of insulted AJ by sort of saying, "There's only two sexes. You should know that," or something along those lines.
Yeah,
So,
of course he did.
I missed that part. I was
Yeah,
multitasking through much of it.
Yeah, he kind of was sort of trying to dig at AJ, and he's like, "Oh, it's all in good fun." There was nothing good fun about that. Like, it's not cool. But that's what he does to AJ, because AJ really annoys him a lot. And I think I wish AJ was here, because lots of love to AJ, but I think he should take away that what he's doing really gets underneath Kent's skin, because he is bringing a light to places that Kent doesn't want to show that light. But he did not want to talk to me. I'll guarantee you that. He did not want to talk to me. All I wanted to do, okay, so the draw for that, I'm sorry, Doc, I have to say that somebody, I can't remember his name in the after show, or the open discussion, he brought up pterodactyls. Why aren't there pterodactyls on the top of the thing? And Kent completely dodged it. All I was going to do is say, hey, you didn't answer the pterodactyl question. Why are there no pterodactyls up the top? Or, other flyers from the Cretaceous era, like Pteranodons or Darks, or any of these things from that era.
Yeah, dark.
Right. Why aren't they up with the birds? Because they flew as well. Mm-hmm. He didn't answer that question. And I couldn't believe that, because I brought it up. I said, you didn't answer. And everybody just looked at it. It's like, why can't you answer that question?
Yeah, he just blew right past it. And I mean, of course he did, but I'd like to hear his explanation, And I did sort of ask that earlier, like, why don't we have mosasaurs with whales? Like, they should have about the same body density. They should have the same ability to swim. They both breathe air.
Yeah.
He had no answer. He just deflected and went to something else. Because that's
he
what
said
Kent does.
Cows and whales. Well, if whales came from cows, and that isn't true. Like, it's cows and whales came from the same ancestor, not like it's not like a cow gave birth to a whale. And
Cooler if it
I
did,
think
though.
it would be cool if it did. And the thing is, it's always like, and I didn't note this down in my notes. I've got a ton of notes, but like he sort of said, oh, but if we just find one out of higher on the fossil thing or lower or something, it's like, yeah, cool. When you can do that, show it to us. But it's pointless sort of saying, well, if this, if that, if the other, when you don't have that happening. I don't get why, if all of the animals died altogether in the flood, why there aren't tyrannosaurs down the bottom where sort of trilobites are, because we never see them down there.
Yeah, but here's what. But the issue with that is like there are unanswered questions even from the scientific worldview. So
Oh, sure.
I tried to set this up in the sense that, like, look, if you want to use the scientific method to disprove other theories that claim to have a complete description, that's what the scientific method is meant for.
Sure.
I do have an issue with people that sort of superimpose the scientific method as a end in of itself, and then sort of just put their hands up and say, but when you ask me, like, why life is even worth living, I don't care. I don't have to answer that. It's almost it really does feel like a bastardization of the scientific method to me. I
Sorry,
just
Sunflower.
like,
Maybe.
look at it
What
that
do you
way.
think the scientific method is? Like, what does it
I
cover?
won't tell you what. Yeah. Sorry.
It's a method of basically deduction. It's basically just a deductive method, formalized deductive method with observations instead of using abstractions to deduce something. You use
No.
experiments and observations to
It's
do
induction. Sorry, this is driving me crazy. It's induction, not deduction. Induction.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you could use the scientific method to do something.
Not really, no.
Well, in the same way that a random guess could be right. Like, you may get a correct result, but it'd be almost by chance.
Well, deduction is sort of taking away possibilities until you're left with one. The problem is that in the real world, unless you're using logic for deduction, the number of possibilities are almost infinite. So you can't usually use deduction in the real world to sort of solve things. And quite famously, Sherlock Holmes went on about deduction. It was actually induction that he was using to take specific inferences based upon the previous events that you've seen. So if we have, every time the light goes red, cars stop kind of thing, you can induct from that, sort of when the light is red, it's safe to walk kind of thing. That's kind of an induction. Deduction is kind of listing all your possibilities and taking them away one by one, which unfortunately, yeah. So deduction really only works in logical stuff, like saying, was it sunflower or not sunflower? If it wasn't sunflower, then it must not have been sunflower.
But science can limit your possibilities.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, that's
Sure,
what
but you'll never be able
Like,
to
science
deduct
only
until you
really
find
deals
one
with the
out.
natural, right?
I mean,
Right.
fair enough. I guess I forget where I was going with that point.
Yeah. Who was the? Let's see, in the after show bit, who was the girl who joined right at the start? Was it Taylor something?
Taylor
That was
Kay.
Yeah, Taylor
There was
Kay,
like some
yeah.
there was like some
Yeah,
young girl. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She
Yeah.
seems like a bright kid. I hope she
I
eventually
got the
figures her
vibe
way
that
out of
that
this.
someone, like adults or someone, like her parents, wrote her questions for her or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I got that. vibe
I
as
don't
well.
know. As I understand it,
didn't
and
seem-
and
well,
I've
and I'm not saying that because the questions were like sophisticated beyond her age, but it was the presentation in which it was kind of like, oh, good question, but a good answer, but here's my question. Oh, good answer, but here's my. It was almost like she just kind of wanted to get them out, and then I don't know.
It
Look,
did
I
seem
don't
slightly
want to
performative. Yeah.
I don't want to
Performative.
speculate on something like that. Like she seemed like a sweet kid, but something about the kind of the presentation of the questions, it felt a little bit maybe scripted from the top down. Maybe I'm cynical. I'm sorry if I am. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, you do have
I can't say for
a
sure.
point. Taylor Kay is her parents are huge fans of Kent Hovind, and so they actually did buy all his DVDs, and they set her up with a YouTube channel and possibly TikTok. I'm not sure, but basically she teaches other kids the lessons that she learned from the DVDs. So there is a scripted element in there. Like her family keeps setting her up with tough questions that creationists shouldn't be able to answer, but they're actually softballs that Kent can just dismiss, like we saw tonight.
Yeah, I kind of got that vibe, and you know what? This is a tough one for me because I don't. I mean, I think that it pains me to say this, but I plan to have kids one day, and I don't plan on like raising them in it to teach them that a certain view on any religion is correct or false. I very much believe in giving children the ability to make their own mind up, like not tilt them in either direction. Give them the information in as neutral a way as you possibly can, and allow the child to make their own mind up on the matter. Like that that's what I think is the best.
Absolutely admirable.
Yeah,
I mean, hey, good on you. That's better than a lot of parents.
Yeah, I personally had some difficulty with that. My oldest was the only one who asked about religion. We were shoveling the driveway when they were around 10 or 11ish. A very helpful child, wanted to help with all the chores. So we were shoveling the driveway, and just out of nowhere, what do you think about God? I'm like, well,
yeah.
I'm like,
rough.
some
That's
people
rough.
think this, and some people think this, and I'm like trying to be neutral, but like, what do you do? You know?
Yeah, it's not easy. I've struggled with that, but I that's what I've sort of come to the conclusion that like there's no risk if you just lay out, look, some people believe this, some people believe this. I would always reassure the child, you have to always feel like you're not being compelled to believe one thing or another. That is what's crucial. Don't forget about what's right or wrong or good or bad. Just remember that you are not being forced or intimidated into believing one thing or another. You are free to believe what you believe, and that's where I understand with my upbringing. Maybe I'm pushing back against the sort of, oh, God is dead. God is there's no God. Like, what do you like? These religious people are they're crazy, they're stupid, they're old fashioned. Maybe I'm pushing but at the same time, I'm at least so I think I have a good enough grasp on it to just try to be as neutral and not push any belief. I don't want to tell the child that there is no God. I don't want to tell the child that there is a God, and if you don't specifically obey these commands, you're going to hell. I want to just try to give a neutral platform of information.
I thought you were going to say I wouldn't tell the God that there is no child. I think that would be awesome.
Don't look here, Your Highness. There is no child.
So at any rate, there is a God watching
Depending
us.
on the deity.
A Titan, in
Indeed.
fact, and I think.
Oh yes.
I think he wants to yell at us about some genetics. You want to go, Titan?
Come on, Titan.
I'm
Correct
not
my
going to
sins.
yell.
What?
What, Mark?
Correct my sins.
I'm having a hard time. I just realized. Hold on.
We go.
You're in a
My
wind tunnel.
earplugs weren't all the way in. I was hearing things very
You'll have to
weird.
speak up.
Okay,
I'm
there
wearing
we
a
go.
towel.
What?
Sorry, I can't hear you. I'm not
You'll
wearing
have to speak.
pants.
You'll have to speak up. I'm wearing a towel.
I am having a terrible time hearing y'all on, and I'm on my phone for StreamYards,
Titan,
which has like
hear me.
15%. So
Hear me, Titan.
there we go. All right, I think I've got it now.
I think everybody
Okay,
else
sorry
is
about
cool
that.
with
I don't do this often. Yeah, first of all, hello.
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 Oh, someone disappeared. Okay, I thought it was me.
Jester ninjas in and out from time to time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the squirrel thing.
Just to clarify, because I was listening while I attempted to edit my avatar for StreamYards, and that was about 1,000 times more difficult than it needed to be. That Taylor is not the Taylor who was the doctoral student at a Christian university who was on MD. Okay, different Taylor. Just making sure,
Right.
because I know everything about that Taylor, unfortunately. But she did not hide her footprints well.
If that was Taylor doing a doctoral candidate program, then I would be seriously impressed. Like, seriously, because that kid, I don't even know if they make the minimum age for YouTube. To be honest with
Yeah,
you,
that moment when you're less impressive than a 12-year-old.
Yeah, Taylor is below the minimum age, but the channel is officially her parents.
I've been
Gotcha.
trying.
Okay.
I've been trying to ask MDD about who has been the number one most super chat or just in general donator of all time. I actually think it's me. I'm not kidding. I think I am. I've donated more money via super chats and otherwise to MDD than anyone else, and I want numbers on this because I'm pretty sure it's me. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think you're going to get numbers, and I probably wouldn't ask James for them. Who knows?
I didn't ask James, but I asked the Discord, and I didn't get much out of it. But yeah,
the Discord.
Yeah,
And
I don't
the
think
YouTube
anybody's
channel
kept
are
track.
not.
I mean,
I
the
don't
channel's been
know,
going
like,
for what, like 12 years?
no,
Like a stupid horror energy is probably pretty high up there.
She
Yeah, I
stopped.
was gonna say.
You would think stupid horror energy, but like she basically, like she was early on sending a ton, and then it's been radio silence from her for the past like 2 years. Like she hasn't. I've been consistently sending super chats. She's gone. I don't know where she has not sent a super chat in at least a year.
Oh, I wouldn't say
I haven't seen her anywhere in a while, actually, come to think of it.
Yeah,
I
she's
saw
not.
her a while back. I saw her a while back. I can't remember where it was. I think it was on one of my streams, actually. She dropped by. So she's definitely is knocking around, you know.
She's probably picking and choosing her debates, though.
I'm just saying, I think I have donated, I've contributed more money to MDD than anyone else. I think so. I could be wrong, but I believe I have.
So now I can blame Sunflower for MDD as well as everything else. Okay, good.
Hey, I think I've been on MDD the most out of anybody here, so feel free to blame me as well.
Y'all know I do not like MDD or James, and I don't care who knows it. So.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt, anyone here. Wait, what are you blaming them for? I love MDD. What are we blaming them for?
I do not like James, and I do not like MDD.
You don't like James?
Let's put it this way. I have only been blocked by one person ever on Discord. I've only blocked maybe 3. James is the one person who ever blocked me on Discord.
I'm going to block you after this and break that record.
Go ahead. You do realize I can unblock you anytime you know my superpower is on my internet platforms, so I'll just unblock me again.
Is it just like a personal vendetta? Like, what? That's not
It's a long story, and I'm not going to go into it here. That would seriously derail this. But there's history.
A lot of people also disagree with James's platforming of some people, thinking that it's. I am in 2 minds.
That's not it.
About it. I know, but I'm just pointing that out as some people do have a big problem with that. I think that.
There's a hate group that has nothing to do with me. Yeah, there's a group of literal. I don't know what platform it was on, Facebook or Reddit or something, of let's destroy MDD because they asked me to join, and I was like, no, I don't care enough. I'm not, you know.
Got better shit to do.
I mean, I think he's look, he's not perfect, but who's better? What point me to the better platform?
You know what? I guess you know, for all I disagree with Donnie's perspective, I respect him that he always gives me the right times. He never, you know, has cancellations on me. Every single time I've gone through Donnie, he's been 100% professional, and I got to respect that. Like, you know, we completely disagree. I disagree with tons that he has to say, but dealing with him is a very professional experience, which is what I want out of it. You know,
I mean, Mark, I will agree with Donnie.
Okay, fair.
Sam, not so much.
No,
Sam
no,
tonight was very abrasive.
He's
Yeah, and
abrasive all the
Donnie
time. That's
doesn't.
natural
sorry.
condition.
Who's Sam?
No, go for it, Tom. Redefine living.
Recycled living.
Oh. Yeah, I think he overtalks a little bit too much too often, in my opinion.
Yeah, the brick guy, and I also saw he was being really rude to Beamsy in the YouTube chat. I was not appreciative of that, gonna be honest.
Yeah, I just hit him in
wouldn't say what
YouTube
he
chat.
said.
He's so obnoxious and never has anything of value to say.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
A year or so. Like I had him blocked. Like the second time I met him, he was just such a prick to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain people that just like they really seem to like their shtick is like sort of like over talking people, and I'm not like I think that at times I've somehow fallen victim to that from like osmosis as like, oh, that's how I've seen them do it. That's how I dominate a room. But I'm at least happy to say I know like I've recognized like this is just a toxic sort of thing. It's like the idea of like, okay, listen, you're not gonna speak up. Hey, you're gonna pipe down and you're gonna let us.
And he always talks to you like you're 5 years old, and it's just like, I'm here as a professional. Address me as such. Come on.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like that. And if there's anything I've learned,
like Mark, did you enjoy that whole is it a problem discussion? Like, was I the only one who was irritated by that?
I enjoyed how you kept redirecting the topic, both during the debate and in the Q&A after. I'm like, why is Doc modding the show? Oh, because no one else is.
I gotta give you a big apology as well. I didn't mean to get stuck on genetics for so long. I just, you know,
No, don't say that. Let's talk about genetics.
Listen, Mark, you were having a great back and forth with them. It's just, it's just like, I knew we had a lot of people who wanted to say stuff, and yeah.
I can talk. I know. I really did try to bring it back to you. I really did. I really did try. But I do apologize. That is totally my fault.
You are forgiven. So you are forgiven.
And look,
Mark's to blame for everything today.
I know.
I shall take your firstborn fire wyvern.
There are still holes in.
Hey, I'm going to change the password of the server. You wait. Like
don't
screw with me, sir.
No.
Yeah, and with redefined living, it doesn't help that I was also poking the bear a bit.
Oh, you were?
What?
Were you being a troll?
He was poking the bear.
Bad, you weren't too bad. Like,
why don't you guys riddle me this one? Like, if an intelligent source wanted to create something in like a human in their own image, right? In my opinion, if they wanted this being to have at the very least the appearance of free will, they would have to also give them a sort of breadcrumb trail of how they evolved, right? As in, I think that it makes sense that there has to be an out, in a sense, for people to think, oh, this was never like I don't have a supernatural ability of free will. I evolved from, over the course of millions of years. into what I am, and therefore I can just, push, like, kick the can down the road of my own actions into some kind of complex evolutionary reaction. I think that
So
you would
if
actually
I'm
need
understanding
this.
you correctly, you're saying that if you were a god, you would want to make it look like things had evolved naturally? Am I understanding right?
No, it wouldn't be immediately apparent that things evolve naturally, but it would be like it would kind of be like if one chooses to explore, it's going to be like it's sort of going to be like you're never going to get quite. It's like you can never reach the bottom of the acid bucket, right? Like you're going to keep looking, and there's going to be kind of an increasingly. It's like in Super Mario 64, you know, that staircase that just keeps, you never get to the end of it. It's like you're not going to get a concise explanation one way or the other.
Sort
I
of
think
like
that
Douglas Adams' paradigm that every time people figure out what the purpose of the universe is instantly replaced with an even more complicated version.
kind of. I mean, I would rephrase that as like the human condition in the moral sense is not one that can be figured out, right? It's more one of you have in certain moments you feel like you can either do the right thing or do the wrong thing, and that, you know, there's no amount of knowledge you can gain that's going to one way or another tilt the scale in your own ability to sort of choose the right or wrong thing. It's like the more you, it's like a procedurally generated kind of world in a way. It's like you are a human that interacts with the world, and you can't figure out enough to diffuse your human condition. It'll just end
So
up being a more
I'll
complex.
entertain your thought, Sunflower. I'll entertain your thought. If I was a god and I wanted to tie in morality with some sort of genetic lineage or some sort of way, like you were saying in a simulation, what I would do is allow people free will, but have their genetic line strengthened by doing right things and decay by doing bad things, like in a simulation where if you do certain things, you will build up skills and stuff, right? Like
Maybe that is the case.
well, the problem there is that you can do the right thing according to what some people say is God's plan or whatever, and you can still just get a bad hand in genetics. You know, you can still just be born with leukemia kind of thing. Like there doesn't seem
Well,
to
wait,
be
you,
that.
you can't do the right thing and be born with leukemia. That would mean that your parent did the right thing, right? Like, what do you mean?
Well,
Someone else
yeah,
did.
well, just say somebody's parents didn't do anything wrong. It's like
Yeah, but that's
seems kind of random.
but like that's too zoomed in. Then like, what if you had leukemia, but then your progeny go on to be the king, and then their your great grandsons conquer the world? It's like you can't.
Well,
You
what if
can't
I
just.
don't have progeny? What if I die?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe you go to heaven. I don't know. Then that's fair.
Well, I don't really see it as sort of, you know, sort of what I'm saying is if I was a god, I would set up a system that would reinforce these values by giving sort of people that demonstrate them advantages over the people that don't. But that doesn't seem to be the case in our world, where it seems to be the predetermined genetics that is what's giving you an advantage over other people, rather than any kind of action that you make. Does that make
Well,
sense?
I'm of the belief that, especially with the advent of epigenetics, that we absolutely do impart our actions onto our offspring. I mean, I think
No.
it's not something that's well understood yet, but there are things like DNA methylation. There's, it's sort of it's a very sort of sprouting field of inquiry that we don't fully understand.
Sure.
I actually fully believe that in one way or another we do actually I'm not gonna say we like I'm not gonna say we pass on the rights and wrongs, but I think that there's something to be said about passing on elements of maybe like trauma or like significant events. I think that can be imparted onto our offspring via some sort of
Okay,
epigenetic process or
I
a
can.
DNA
Oh,
methylation.
sorry.
You might not fully understand. I don't know.
Well, that's
I can address that to a certain extent because that's just come up recently in a biology Discord server I'm in with, let me be clear, professors and doctoral students. So the epigenetics in some species are generational. They get some, at least, changes get passed on, at least temporarily. And house cats are a good example of that. If you take the most 30 generations of being indoors, eating food out of a bowl cat, and put it outdoors and it has babies, that next generation that's going to be the kittens, it's going to have to hunt, it's going to be stressed, it's going to be a little more malnourished. The next generation of kittens are larger and have larger, rounder eyes, the better to see prey at night or at dusk with, and all that, and bigger claws, all of that. And that happens for 4 generations. And then it stops. They'll stay that size in general, on average, from then on. The genetics have been maximized towards survival in that way. But if you take one of the kittens from that feral cat and bring it back indoors and feed it, and it has kittens, the next generation, those kittens will be smaller and have smaller, less round eyes and all of that. And that goes on for 4 generations until you're back at what we think of as a house cat, until you're back at the basic cat. However, the reason that that's remarkable is because it's unusual. Most mammal species in particular do not pass on epigenetic changes. Epigenetic changes affect the individual, but not the offspring. Now, we know that that's not an absolute, although the way it's not an absolute is random. Some of the epigenetic changes that occur get not fixed during meiosis and therefore do get passed on. Call it 5%. I don't know an actual number, and I don't think anyone does. And the reason we don't know that is because very often the only way we can check that is not with the father, but with the mother. But the problem with that is if we say, oh, look, we know that she was stressed and malnourished and blah, 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 and underwent this stuff. Well, that also is when she was pregnant. That affected the baby in the womb. It's very hard to affect epigenetics in adolescence. You see it more in children or adults, but not in adolescents. So when you look at the epigenetic changes that look like they may have been passed from the mother to the child, which again is just easier to check anyway, and more sure, unless you're first test to make sure that who she thinks the father is the father. You don't know if you're testing a change that occurred literally before the baby was born because it was undergoing the same stress that the mother was, or if it's something that got passed on in the egg. And our best, yeah.
Titan, it sounds like you have a problem with this. Like, are you upset by the possibility of?
No, I'm saying that this is something that's being studied now. It's literally the topic of, it was the topic of discussion because it's something that one of the people is studying. And we were discussing a paper about it that fails to take into account some of this stuff. They were critiquing it. This isn't even my critique, to be sure, because I'm not that well. My education long predates even the discovery of epigenetics. I'm not well versed in it myself.
So what if it were the case that everything, you're missing something, and that it can totally be imparted, not from just pregnant mothers, but from at any stage of life? Like, is this something you're okay with accepting the possibility of?
But even then, I'm saying it would be like the cat, where and in humans we already know that more of the information is actually reset in each generation. That when meiosis occurs, the epigenetic changes go away. That's part
Why
of
do
the
you have a problem
process.
with this?
I don't have a problem with it. I'm telling you what happens according
like
to
you
the research that's been done. So I'm saying that even if you're not entirely wrong in the sense that some of the changes might get passed on to the next generation, say 5 or 10% of them. The
Okay.
generation after that, only 5 or 10% of those changes would get passed on. So it's not something that changes every generation after
Well,
that. It's something that only changes at most a couple of generations.
No, there's a lot of issues with what you just said. Like, if the cat stays outside forever, is it diminishing returns? What do you mean? Would it just
No.
dwindle
The
down?
point is that if
He
the
said
cat
the cat
comes
was
back
meant
in, those
Yeah,
changes go
if
away.
the cat comes back in, but what if the cat doesn't come back in?
Then the changes then they're in the circumstances that cause the changes to occur in each generation anyway and get
There was
passed
still
on.
an epigenetic initial instance.
So I
and
just
it's
want
getting-
to add
So
something.
what do you?
I just
Again, you're flailing here, Titan. Sorry, like you're not
Well,
really making much of.
No, I'm stating a scientifically known
Yeah,
fact,
but
Yeah,
which
it-
is
I
again
don't
the
think
research
Titan
is
is
new, but it's
flailing,
done.
Sunflower. I think that's an unfair
Yeah.
characterization.
I think
You're not
also
taking
that
position
what
one
I
way or
didn't
the other.
what I couldn't link into it, like what Titan's describing as these environmental stuff that triggers epigenetic, like putting the cat outside, that's an environment where it can only get food. This is what we're describing. What I don't get how is tied into it is sort of this ethical question of people doing the right thing. I don't see how ethical decisions are made to have epigenetic changes. So maybe you could explain that.
And this is to give Sunflower some credit. There is some possibility that someone who has gone through severe epigenetic changes, we don't know all of the ways in which trauma during childhood, ongoing severe trauma, not a trauma, changes people. We know that it changes the brain, but we
No, I get
also
that.
know that it's changing the epigenetics. And one of the things it does seem to do is lower empathy. Lower empathy means less morality, literally. I mean, that's, one is based on the other. So we don't know the home of empathy. We know it's in the brain, but we don't know what causes it. We know it's a genetic thing, but is the change that makes people who have undergone prolonged severe childhood trauma purely physiological on the growth scale, or is it a genetic change, an epigenetic change, literally? We don't know. So he could be right to that extent that there is an epigenetic change in the individual like that.
Thank you,
But you're
King.
going back to the trauma as being the cause of the epigenetic change. But
Thank you, King.
like you're not actually going back to the chosen behavior, an ethical decision as free will, to be the cause of the epigenetic change.
Yeah, no, that's nonsense. Yeah,
Because
he's putting the cart before the horse, but he's on the right track. Yeah.
Right. But what I'm getting at is that what I was sort of saying was I would expect to see that ethical behavior have some kind of genetic change, but that's not what we see. What we see is, trauma is an environmental stimulus. And yeah, I get how that could cause an epigenetic change, but it's still not like me deciding to do something causes a change.
But you can't prove that one way or the other. You don't know what the person was going through mentally, what they chose. Yeah, you can say that it's the jury is out, like we don't know, but you can't just say that it's not the case that their free will decision impacted it. You just say we can't ever know. And I fully
there's nothing to link it.
But we do know that most of the changes aren't passed, which means that there's not that an unethical decision in your lifetime is not going to significantly affect, even if it changes your epigenetics, isn't going to significantly affect anything about your children or their children.
Why not?
Right.
Because we know that it resets during meiosis. We can literally watch that happen in a petri dish. We can literally induce meiosis.
We're at an
and
here.
And then check the epigenetics of the resultant cells, and at that point gametes essentially, and they're reset. We know that that's what happens.
No, hold on a second. If you check the gametes of the kittens, that was when the mother was put outside, are you saying that they're reset, but they are still
okay? And look, this is not, again, epigenetics is something that has literally been discovered and researched since my time. I've had to have this explained. But the point is that
is observed in cats, but now you're saying it's totally reset.
Yeah, we've always known. We've known since I was in college that something made that happen to cats. We didn't know what.
How do you know?
Now we know what it was.
How do you know it's fully reset then in human offspring?
Because what they do is they take a sample of your cells, yeah, just literally a needle biopsy or whatever. And they say, oh look, we can see that this and this and this have all been changed, and they do know how to test that. If they culture enough cells, they can look at them and find any of the little epigenetic changes. But wait, and then they take a sperm sample from you. And they look at the DNA in the sperm sample, and the changes are reset. They're no longer there.
You're just making
so they know that they reset during meiosis in the body. They can also induce meiosis in the in cultured cells, and they get the exact same results. Which means it's the process of meiosis of converting the cell into cells that get sperm and eggs.
What if you compare the cat's sperm to the kitten's DNA? You're saying you see the opposite?
Then you see a greater level of epigenetic change being passed on each generation. Yes.
No, you're making
because that's how the research. That's what got us here. Actually, was with epigenetics was the cats was looking at what makes the cats be like that.
Titan,
we knew they were like that. We didn't know why.
Pause, please. Pause, please. Pause, please. Pause, please. Pause, please.
Yeah, but Titan's just making
Titan,
shit up.
Gotta pause, please. Pause, please. Titan,
you know he's making
shit up. Could you please provide a source so you can show Sunflower here now?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can only do StreamYards on the phone, which is also the only way I can actually get a source to you. And I'm at 5%, but I'll send it to you on Discord.
That's fair. Drunk and
I think I can even find the paper I was just talking about. But but really and truly, honestly, that's way off topic from what and I'm at 5% on the phone. So I definitely want to get this in. I had a real problem with the way that extinction in particular was being discussed, and y'all were kind of not giving pushback on it because Neanderthals did not go extinct.
Spew this trash. Like,
well,
what are you talking about?
So Titan, it depends on a lot of things. Like, functionally, Neanderthals as a unique species do not exist anymore, but they do kind of live on in human genomes.
They were never a unique species if they could breed with something else to produce Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens are our new thing.
Depends on which species concepts you go by.
That's fair, except that, again, if you say that something has gone extinct, that means there are no more extant ancestors. We are the ancestors of Neanderthals, therefore they did not go extinct. It doesn't matter how you look at species if you think about it that way.
We're the ancestors of Neanderthals.
I mean, I'm sorry, we're the descendants of Neanderthals.
That's fine. I think I have to piggyback on that a little bit.
Tonight. How much have you had to drink, dude?
I'm fine.
I do not drink or do other intoxicants.
Don't start throwing that around, Sunflower, please.
Please. Just so, Titan, could we maybe agree that distinct populations Like the
Yes.
distinct populations of Neanderthals no longer procreate.
Exactly. Exactly. If you want to think of them as an ethnicity or a distinctive, singular cultivar, I think in terms of plants, because that was my area of study, of Neanderthals are no longer extant, yes. But
Sure.
their genetics live on. Hell, if you look at me, I look like a
Yeah.
Neanderthal, not my avatar, the real me. It's like, I realize that probably that's not important. But the fact is that I don't like the way of thinking of it as though there were distinct species that almost miraculously found a way to interbreed and then one of them all died out, because that really, from a biological point of view, is not what happened.
So-
Just
So
as,
you
and this was
like,
the other.
you
I'm
like
sorry.
plants, is that right, Titan?
Oh, I'm the
Maybe we
plant
could
guy.
view
Yeah,
them as more of a unique strain of the Homo genus.
yeah, cultivars. Yeah, exactly. There are
Sure.
specimen cultivars of plants. That's the word for it. That are distinctive, and you normally don't let them breed with other members of that species because you don't get anything really worthwhile out of that, unless you've got a whole program breeding towards something else. But yes,
Sure.
so if you had
And
a
then
cultivar
Neanderthals
that
would
got into
represent
the
a unique
wild
cultivar
and
that is functionally extinct. Would you agree with that?
yes, functionally, there are no Neanderthals there are no 100% Neanderthals, but the point is that Neanderthals, the vast majority of Neanderthal DNA, and the vast majority had to match the vast majority of the DNA of what I call proto-sapiens. We are Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens include, for the most part, not all of us, Neanderthal DNA and other proto-sapiens. They were distinct. We could look at them and say physiologically they had some distinctive characteristics, but we can say that about extant ethnic groups. We can say that in general, again, because we don't have that many bones of Neanderthals to know if what we know about them is true of all of them anyway. That's a fact. But we can look at an Asian person today and say skin in a particular color range, slanted eyes, shorter relative height. We can look at an African person. We can look at an Amazon denizen if you've ever seen them. You can look at Australian Aborigines have distinctive facial features. Most people can recognize an Australian Aborigine from the distinctive facial features on sight. But they're not separate races, and if one of them died out, it doesn't mean that they died out if they bred in first with others and those distinctive features are lost. The particular features that we're familiar with might be lost, but those are purely cosmetic in that sense. I mean, there may be a functional purpose to them in the microecology they're in, but for the most part, they're just
I do want to push
cosmetic.
back on you a little bit, because I did kind of say that sort of we still can carry the genetics, or some of us still carry the genetics from Neanderthals. So when they were talking about the inbreeding problem that apparently existed, obviously there were Neanderthals that didn't inbreed because we carry some of their DNA. They bred with Homo sapiens. So it was kind of weird to me that they're going, oh, well, they just inbred and things. And it's like, well, yeah, their populations were very spread out and very insular, whereas the waves of Homo sapiens weren't as sort of isolated as these populations of Neanderthals. So I didn't get what their problem was with the inbreading of Neanderthals.
I was very confused because I couldn't tell if they were talking about the crossbreeding, or inbreeding. They were conflating two different things to me. It sounded like they were also talking about the very small population that remained in Africa about the time of the Toba volcano super volcano eruption. And honestly, no one knows if that supervolcano eruption is the reason why there appears to have been a genetic bottleneck. That's just a theory, and there are a lot of and that's well outside my field, so I don't care. But they did occur about the same time. That could, correlation is not causation.
So
But
if
what it
I may,
is we
really
know
quick.
What?
So, sorry, just that whole thing with Sam and the problem that we kept discussing. I'm 90% sure that was intentional. 10% reserved for him just being an idiot in that topic.
Well, yeah,
was a thing.
and keep in mind I did come in late too, and there may have been conversation on some of these subjects before that I missed. But this is something I looked at because genetic bottlenecks actually drive evolution. What happens is you get a small population that inbreeds, and that's what I thought he was referring to. Maybe I misunderstood that even. Because they have no choice. There's not enough genetic variability for them to, or enough individuals for them to not do so over several generations. You're going to end up marrying someone who is functionally, if not truly, your first cousin, essentially, in terms of the genetics. And that's when the culling starts. That's when they start somehow, whether it's literally killing individuals who are showing characteristics that are not desirable, let's say, or just simply not letting them breed, which is much more common. Even among animals, that's much more common. Just everyone looks at them and goes, "Nah, too stupid, do this, do that," and doesn't, won't have babies with them. Too weak, literally, physically, a lot of times. So you end up pulling out the bad genes. What's that?
Is it a problem? Is it a problem, Time?
No. The problem is that they seem to think that 2 to 10,000 individuals was too few to produce a viable long-term species. It's not by any stretch of the imagination.
So you're saying there's not a problem with inbreeding, Titan? That's what you're saying?
I'm not saying there's not a problem with inbreeding. I live in Mississippi. Trust me, I live around it enough, and I'm not even making a joke. I'm really not even making a joke. You can not where I live. I live in kind of a tourist destination area, so it's a little different. But if you go out literally just 10, 15 miles away from here into the country, you will see individuals that you're like, oh, your grandfather and his sister had a baby, and then the grandfather had a baby with the baby. That's what happened to you. You could tell. I mean, it's like that's bad. That's really, really bad.
That was basically what Sam was doing to Mark and I.
Right. That's what they were trying to imply. But the thing that they miss is that genetic bottleneck happened in Africa about 75,000 years ago, right? And from that bottleneck eventually came the people that came the ones that moved out in the last diaspora throughout the world. But when did the last Neanderthals live?
30 to 40,000 years ago.
I'm still alive.
They were already a distinctive group by the time that group ran into them, which means that the ones that survived in Africa could not have been the only ones that survived in the first place. Mm-hmm. There were smaller groups that had moved out in previous diasporas, and also I'm guessing that some of their misapprehension is based on their idea that these diasporas were like, well, it's getting a little crowded. Why don't you say we get, 100,000 individuals and all go off somewhere else together? That's not how it worked. Small groups went out over long periods. The diasporas were only distinct in the sense that they were they stopped for a while and then started back up. Population would get low enough for whatever reason that there was less pressure for them, and then it would grow again, and then there would be more people moving out, running into the people who were already out there somewhere and breeding back in with them.
And that's what I said. That's exactly what I said.
Okay, if you said that, I missed it.
Sorry,
they sort of
really
said,
quick. Titan, I think you might be talking a bit too loud to hear the rest of us. Would you mind either turning your mic down or maybe pulling away from your phone a bit?
I'm a little deaf, and I don't know how to turn my mic down because I'm on a phone. Let's see.
Just
Well,
hold.
I'm a
I
little
sort of-
deaf and I've got earplugs in, so but I can only stay a few more seconds anyway. I'm literally at 2% now on the phone. I'm not even
Okay.
going to be able to get on Discord. So,
Well,
but yeah, Mark, if you said that, I missed it.
Well, they brought up this first wave of the sort of the early homos out of Africa, wave one, or the first out of Africa one, and as I pointed out, there were multiple waves in that exodus from Africa, basically. So they're sort of talking like, oh, this population went out all by themselves and then just stayed there all by themselves, and that's not what was happening. There were waves of them going out. Like they were sort of acting like it was just this bunch of homos that just went out, global homo and just settled somewhere. And it's like that's not what it's happening.
Exactly. I did not know you had gotten that in, and I'm glad you did if you did. But the other side of that is, and I'm literally at 1% now, that even the ones who left, very few failed to be nomadic. So small groups, and I don't know how big those groups were. I'm sure Dr. Dino has a much better idea than that. What a viable tribe size is, for lack of a better term, for these nomadic groups.
Depends.
I'm sure sometimes there were 8 or 10 of them, in a group that wouldn't have been viable long term even, but they would happen to run into another one that was 40 or 50 strong. And maybe some of the 40 or 50 went off with the 10, or a couple of the 10 stayed with the 40 or 50. There was constant genetic exchange going on, not just from the origin place outward, but with each other, because they didn't get very friggin' far walking. I mean, they were first in the Middle East and then in Europe and heading towards Asia. It was a very long, slow process before they, that's why, and it never stopped. That interbreeding never fully stopped. When Marco Polo went to Asia, I mean, a lot of Europeans had never seen an Asian, but some had. There were some babies. A few Asians had come to Europe, and
Stopped?
Yeah.
What?
The interbreeding never stopped.
No, not entirely.
So who's the most and who's the least interbred human?
Oh, I don't know the answer. I don't know how to answer that. I wouldn't know how to go about finding that out. I mean,
you give a description of like the entire diaspora of humanity. You should be able to at least give us an inkling of the most.
I mean, my best guess would be that more than. I think I just disappeared.
Don't run away now. Who are the most and least inbred?
His phone's on 1%, man.
Just answer it real quick. Most and least.
Maybe it's North Sentinel Island. How about that?
I really wanted to know the answer to that, man. Dang. That would have been like
maybe tribes of the Amazon.
The smoking gun. Wait, the tribes of the Amazon are the most inbred?
Oh, you're asking most?
Well, I want to know most and least.
Modern humans?
Yeah, why not?
Modern?
Yeah.
Probably some small uncontacted tribes. So North Sentinelese probably wouldn't be a bad.
That wouldn't have lined up with
option.
His freaking diaspora narrative that he just gave, right?
I'm not sure.
It's an isolated small population of hominids. Why wouldn't it line up?
Because his whole point was that, like, it was not accidental that. Like, actually, it was hard to follow. He was kind of like schizo posting, honestly, with his entire.
Oh, come on, Sunflower! Don't be like that.
I don't. Can anyone else follow what he was saying? Like,
yes.
what? Okay, so what was he saying about?
He was saying that there was lots of people that went out from Africa in the first out of Africa one, right, which was the pre-Homo sapiens movement out of Africa. And what he was saying was that they were settling in small steps, but people were flowing back and forward. Like there were some ones that tried to do a nomadic lifestyle and they couldn't pull it off outside of Africa and came back. So we find this gradual movement away from Africa of waves of people that are all still intermingling. And then some of them sort of became isolated, like the Neanderthals, but it wasn't like they just moved out, got completely cut off. There was still some movement in between.
I
And
didn't
he
get all that.
likened it. Well,
I don't know
just
how you
let's let me
So-
finish. I want to sort of show what he's saying. And he said he likened it to like when, you know, Marco Polo went to China, which previously people hadn't visited, but there were still people going to China and, you know, carrying genetic material over there, and vice versa. People from China had been to Europe and carried genetic material. So even though we see them as sort of cut off completely, they're not completely cut off. That's what he was getting at.
Wow,
Mhm.
that is. You should be a a translator, because I have no idea. You just
Right.
like you're a miracle worker in terms of transcribing what he was trying to say into like a coherent thought.
I just
didn't.
All right,
listened to him.
come on,
I don't-
let's
get
not insult Titan, man.
I'm
Come
not even
on.
insulting. I'm just saying I didn't get that from what he was saying at all. I was struggling to figure out what he was trying to say. I don't think I'm
didn't
alone in
see-
that.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought it was actually quite interesting what he was just, and it sort of lined up with what I had said, that waves came out of Africa, not just one population that sort of moved out and then they cut themselves off completely. That wasn't what was happening. It was waves going out, and some people even coming back, and just like the weird thing is, it's kind of seen as this thing of very, very simplistic, one thing then another, whereas the development of humans is, as Doc kept saying, and he did really well to keep saying it, it's so messy.
But
It's
what was
so
that in
messy.
response to?
Yeah.
What was
that?
what in response to?
That the whole idea of like going out of Africa in waves.
Oh, well, because they were saying that, like, it's like they said that if you had a population go out of Africa and then they were isolated, they wouldn't be able to interbreed after X amount of years. I think the amount they said was a couple of 100,000 years, kind of thing. Which I think it was more about 100,000 was what we were saying. Or Doc said 100,000. I think it was about
a couple 100,000, depends on the population.
30 what I read, but anyway, round there, right? The whole idea that they wouldn't be able to interbreed anymore because they'd been genetically separate for that long. But the whole point is they weren't genetically separate, because there were waves of people coming out, mixing in, people going back, all this sort of, you know, stuff happening. And yeah, there were populations like the Neanderthals, which were very, very isolated into villages, more so than the Homo sapiens. And they had these interbreeding patterns because of the way they lived. But as Titan pointed out, even they weren't completely inbred, because if they were, we wouldn't have the genetic material of Neanderthals in some of our population. So,
Wait, why not?
Well, because they bred with humans, Homo sapiens.
Wait, but you said if they were too inbred, we wouldn't have their.
Yeah, because if they were
inbred, at
they
the
wouldn't
last
breed outside of Neanderthals or their family. And if they're breeding with Homo sapiens,
at
that's
the last.
definitely outside.
What if they inbred for like 99% of their existence, and then like at the last, like at the twilight hour, the human, like the non-Neanderthal human, sort of came in and interbred with them?
Well, I'd have to see evidence for that. I don't think
but
it,
like that's
it
not
is as
even
bad as that.
that crazy. I mean, they still could have been interbreeding for the majority of their
Sure.
thing.
Sure. And when a couple of those individuals from that lineage gets pulled back into a diverse genetic pool such as Homo sapiens, that problem's kind of sorted out. You know, like there is a diverse genetic material as of that point. So it wouldn't really even matter.
Well, I agree with that point. Yeah.
Sure. And look, and one of the articles said that the interbreeding may have been, they're not sure, but it may have been one of the reasons why they went, you know, the Neanderthal lines didn't continue the way they were. I mean, I know Titan doesn't like the word extinct, but didn't continue the way they were. And that the only remnant we kind of have of extant Neanderthals is in human DNA. But, you know, this whole idea that they're just, you know, if they're coming out of Africa, it's just one group and they should be genetically dissimilar. That is not the reality at all. That is what I was pointing out.
Okay, you did a better job of explaining it. in my opinion. But
Yeah,
whatever.
but I mean,
My own
I've had
failure.
a lot of practice.
Maybe
I've had
that's
a
my
lot
own
of
failure.
practice.
Yeah, fine. Maybe that's my own failure. Then I okay, fair enough.
Well, that's how I understood it. I
So-
didn't seem to have a problem. I don't know, you know. But then again, Titan was talking pretty technical genetic stuff, I must admit. So I'm not blaming anybody for not
So,
understanding.
quick question. Anyone else surprised Kent only brought up me, quote unquote, riding his coattails once in the debate?
No, not really. I don't think. I think he really wanted to get that out, but I don't think he wanted to dwell on it, kind of thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, he wanted it to be a quip, but he didn't really want to
Uh-huh.
talk about it because that could lead to some interesting places.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell. Like, was he a normal amount of redness by the time he was done dealing with me, or was that more than normal? Couldn't tell.
Redness.
He got
No,
pretty
that's
rosy.
normal. Yeah,
Oh.
he'll do that. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, you did fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and your presentation was great. Yeah, absolutely. No, very well done, sir. Hats off to you.
Thank you.
I also think
I
you did-
wanted to put on a good show for my first debate.
I do
I'm
think you did a good
noting
job.
the irony that Mark isn't wearing a hat.
Hang on.
When he's wearing headphones, he could take off his headphones if he was serious.
Let me put on my gay hat.
That is a pretty gay hat. I am envious.
That's cool. But
Yeah.
it looks too small for your head.
It's just because I'm wearing my headphones. Hold it. I'll do this.
Okay. Oh, that looks cool, dude. That looks
There you go.
proper. That's actually
I got this so
badass.
I could say, well, hold on a second. Let me put on my gay hat. And I
That
could actually
looks
put on a gay
that
hat.
looks cool, man. Like that really.
I
does
am the
look
captain
cool.
now.
I'm actually kind of jealous. That's
Captain of the
cool-
Thailers.
That is a badass hat. I'm not gonna lie. It's just a cool looking hat, and I'm a hat guy. If you can't tell from my avatar, I'm a hat guy. So I respect a good hat, and that is a cool hat. That's all I'm gonna say on this matter.
Thank
Just like,
Damn
you
right,
know,
Sunflower. Hats are the most underrated frickin' accessory.
I don't like hats.
but like Mark, you look like you should be saying, "All right, men, let's slay the enemy. Let's go.
Let's load those
How
cannons,
did you?
boys.
Did you?
And it's blasting good."
I wanna see some semen on deck.
You
I
can
wanna
serve
see
your
some
fellow
semen.
man in the Navy.
What on earth? Do you guys remember a game called Dance Dance Revolution?
I remember seeing it, never played
I've
it.
seen it, yeah.
There was a song in this game, and when I was in like 8th grade, in like the PS2 PlayStation 2 version of basically Dance Dance Revolution. It was not in the Navy, but it was by the same artist. His name was Captain Jack, and the song was called "Dream a Dream." It was like "Dream a Dream," and I just remember I was freaking a beast at that song. I was killing it on the freaking Dance Dance Revolution.
There
Like,
you
the it was like a 4 arrows thing you buy. It's like an extension for your PS2 you put on the floor. I'm just saying, man, it's a good memory. I remember, but the reason I bring that up is because Captain Jack was like he also had "In the Navy" and like other songs of that nature. So just some nostalgia. That's all. No big deal.
I only ever saw it in the arcade, but I was weirdly,
Right.
I've always liked dance. I just don't like dancing.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently tried. I want to take up
love
tap
dancing.
dancing. I've proposed to my close friends, like, I think I'd be a good tap dancer. I have good rhythm. I'm light on my feet. I'm just very, quick on my. I'm just a natural, but I don't know. I gotta find like a local teacher or something. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark. Go ahead.
No worries. I love dance. I used to do capoeira, which is just so much fun.
Oh, fuck yeah. I tried that for a while, but I couldn't find a teacher, and you can only go so far yourself, especially before the internet.
Well, my background was in gymnastics, so I was very good at it, and yeah, a lot of fun. Like, kind of almost useless in self-defense, but that's not the point of it. The point is it's a dance kind of thing.
Yeah, gymnastics. Aren't you like 6 foot something?
Yeah.
Did you grow
So
out of it?
what? Hey, if you're lean
Well,
muscle, then what's the?
No, it's harder to do rotation moves, like especially the front salts and things, if you're taller, because there's the longer something is, the more effort it takes to rotate.
Right,
It's
fair
actually
enough.
easier if you're smaller, but that's okay. I mean, I was never like a professional gymnast or anything like that. I just did gymnastics. So
Oh yeah, and speaking of long and short things, Sam's already going at me in the comments. Oh, joy.
nice.
Oh,
But if somebody has a good performance, they don't have to go to the comments. Like, you can just sit on your laurels. Like, don't go to comments and hassle people.
oh, you mean like the not the side chat, but the actual comments on? Okay, yeah.
I basically just said, hey, thanks for having me on. I had a good time. Happy to answer questions about evolution or dinosaurs. And
Yeah, you know
he
what?
went at me like, "Rar rar rar, your atheistic evolution, rar rar
I
rar."
can't respect enough.
Just
look,
let him make a jackass of himself.
Dr. Dino, I can't respect enough. Look, a lot of people. It takes a special kind of person to even debate Kent Hovind, let alone sort of remain kind of calm and respectful.
I mean, I'm only gonna do it once. But
I'm just saying,
that's
like,
it.
I cannot imagine anyone saying anything negative about the way you conducted yourself. Because, fine, if someone disagrees with your arguments, whatever, but you conducted yourself like as well as someone could ever hope in a debate. So, look, don't even whatever anyone says about like, oh, if they try to give you any crap about like being bad faith or whatever, just don't even believe it, because that's BS. You conduct yourself like an absolute respectful interlocutor. You presented arguments. There's no way anyone can sit here and there's no way anyone's ever going to say that you were a bad faith interlocutor in that debate. I will double down on that. That is just no way. That they're lying.
You by far exceeded the civility standard.
I tried my best, but really, like, his taunts are just so boring. Like, I couldn't get mad at him. They were just, basic. Like, when I say they're kindergarten level, I'm not really joking.
It's elementary, my dear Watson.
Like, he's about 70 years old, but he acts like he's 7 at the oldest.
Yeah, you did a very good job. I think that, in my personal opinion, you especially kind of did expose weaknesses in his argument. But even merits of the argument aside, you conducted yourself as well as anyone could ever hope. And just don't even look. If you see comments that say otherwise, they're lying, because I really believe they're lying and projecting because they are insecure or something. They're dude, come on. No one can knock you on how you conducted yourself. I think that's BS if they do that. You showed restraint and you made your points in a very professional and fair way, point blank, period. No one, I can't imagine anyone like, if they disagree with the points, fine, but I just look, I've seen a lot of debates and you did a very good job of maintaining your cool and whatever. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. But we've been on the after show for almost 2 hours now. I am a little tired. Gotta admit.
Okay, but I mean, you've been going over 6 hours, so I can't say
Yeah,
I blame
same.
you. Awesome endurance, buddy.
Yep.
Awesome endurance. I tip my hat to you, my big gay hat. Why is it blurring the thingo? That is there something naughty about that badge? Hold it. Why are you blurring that? Okay, don't know. Apparently, it's gay and rude. Apparently.
Oh,
All right.
well.
Love it, people. I'm gonna dash. Good to see you.
What
Congratulations,
there.
Doc. That was fantastic. Fantastic. And I look forward to the next one. Absolutely. Don't
Thank you.
forget to like.
Hopefully,
and
I'll have an
subscribe.
actual opponent next time.
There you go. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Doc's going to be doing more debates. He's going to be doing more stuff about dinosaurs. He's going to be doing more stuff about paleontology, and I'm all for it. So if you're all for it, definitely hit that subscribe button and hit that bell to get more notifications on Doc Dino. I'm Mark Reed, and I'm out. See you.
And if any of y'all follow my Creation Science Theaters, there will not be one next week. I'm going on a little vacation. And instead, I'm going to be replacing it with a stream on human evolution, which should hopefully be fun.
Those silly, silly humans. I had to get a funny hat too, so I can also tip it.
Fair. And thank you.
Also,
thanks
Doc
for
has a
giving us
Patreon.
Sunflower. Thank you, Ember. Yes, thank you, Ember.
I'm gonna head out too, but thank you so much, Dino, for letting me come on. Thank you to the whole panel for being, respectful and having an interesting conversation. Trying to do better every day, and really appreciate you guys. So yeah, I'm gonna head out too. Thanks. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone. See you
Night
around.
night.